Hi everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my computer today. I'm going to show you how to use Cricut Design Space to make this design. We're going to learn several skills from working with text to working with shapes and slicing, plus how to use offsets, welding, and all the fun things that it takes to make designs like this. This is actually a lot easier than people think, and I can't wait to show you how to do it. So without further ado, let's get started, but be sure you're subscribed here, that way you don't miss out on any of the fun, crafty content we have coming. So this design is one that I made just for fun the other day, and I thought, gee, I should show you guys how to make it because there's a lot of skills that are used within this design, so I'm really excited. Now, the first thing that I want to start with our design is a circle, because this outline here, these little lines, were just a circle to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a shape, and I'm going to use my circle. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and just make my circle whatever size. This design may end up a little bit bigger than the original. That's okay because we can always resize it. Now I'm going to change the color of my circle, and then I'm going to duplicate it and change the color of my second circle just so you can see that there are two circles because we need to slice it in order to make these lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top circle, the darker circle, and for just measurement's sake, I'm going to go ahead and just make this an even 8 inches. And then I'm going to take this one and I need to make it a little bit smaller than the original. Now you'll notice right now that the line is pretty tiny. I think that's a little bit too thin. So I'm going to go to like 7.7 and just see how I feel about the thickness of this line. So we're looking at like this thin, like a little bit like lighter green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of my circles and I'm going to center them. And that's going to give me a better idea of kind of how thick this line is going to be. I do think I want it a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go to like 7.65 and just see if I'm a little bit happier with that. And again, I need to align this and center it so that I make sure my circle is fully the right size all the way around. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a good thickness. Now, we're going to slice the circles out of each other. Keep in mind when slicing that you can only slice 2 layers. So I'm slicing the dark green circle and the light green circle, which makes 2 layers. I'm going to go down to the bottom here and click slice. And it's going to take a second. But now what I want to do is I'm going to delete the dark green and I'm going to delete this inner light green circle. So now I have my circle, which is what our starting point should be. Now I'm going to go ahead and size this down just a little bit just so that I have a little more space kind of on the screen. And we're going to start working with our fonts next. So what I want to do first is I'm going to open up a text box. And for this, I'm going to pull this over so you can see it. I'm going to double click on that box and I'm going to go ahead and put the I'm not text into this box. Now, I already know what fonts I used, but you can use any font you want. It doesn't matter. You do what makes you happy. But I already know I used the Made Tommy font for the plain fonts, and I'll link all my fonts down below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search the font name, and I'm just going to search for Tommy. And right here is Made Tommy. So that's the font that I used for all the regular text. And then this one here is one called Boldwell, which we'll get to in a minute. Now with the I'm not, what I want to do is I want to arch it or curve it around my circle like this one is. So I'm going to go up to my curve option and I'm going to start curving my text. Now we're going to resize this a little bit and play kind of with the curve. But one thing I want you to note is if you have ungrouped your letters or welded them or any kind of manipulation to your text other than just leaving it text, you will not be able to do any curving to them. So that's just something that you want to keep in mind. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks pretty good. I will show you how we're going to kind of center everything in just a second because I'm going to do this user-friendly one down here at the bottom next. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Control C and Control V, which is copy and paste, to copy and paste this text. That way I don't have to select the text again. I've got the same text box. It's totally fine. Then I'm going to double click it and change it to user friendly. And you'll see that it's curved the wrong direction. That's fine. We can adjust our curve up here at the top. And I'm going to curve this one the other way. Now I am going to make this one a bit smaller because I do think that it's too big. So I'm just going to kind of size this down a bit and then play with our curve a little bit more. And that's why I leave the circle fully visible here, because I just want to get a good feeling for how big I want the wording to be. I think that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do really quick, just so that I'm happy and know that I like the way it looks, is I'm going to select all my items. So my two texts and my circle. I'm going to go to Align, and I'm going to use the Center Horizontally option just so that everything's sitting where I want it to be. And I can make sure everything looks nice and straight and even. Pretty happy with that. I think it looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the I'm not again. And I'm going to take the curve off of it really quickly just by going up to the number and clicking the 0. That's just going to, again, leave it so that I'm using the same font and I can play around with it and, manipulate it as I want to. And then this one I'm going to change to say anti-social. Now with this font here, I want it to be a little bit taller. I think it looks a little skinny in the circle. So if I want to do that, what I need to do is change this font to a, so what I need to do is go ahead and weld this font. That way I can manipulate its size versus trying to manipulate it while it's still font. You can't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the antisocial word. I'm going to go to combine and I'm going to weld that text. Once that's welded, I'm going to go up here to the top, and right by where it says size, there's this little lock. I'm going to unlock that, and that's going to allow me to stretch this out a little bit so it's just a little bit taller. I just wanted it to look a little taller, just kind of a personal preference thing. Now, I'm done with this section, so now let's do the knot, which is really easy to do. What I'm going to do is open up my shapes, and there is this little oval shape right here, which is what I used for this. And I'm going to take this little oval shape, and I do manipulate this a little bit because I don't want it to be quite as tall. I want it to be a little bit thinner. And then I need to actually use the word not again. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste I'm not, just again so that I'm using the same text box. It's just easier. Delete the I'm, and then you can take away the curvature again. And what I want to do for this one is I want to fit it within this box. Now I'm going to go ahead and, just so it's easier to see what we're doing, change the color of the box. And I need to take this word not and fit it into our box to where I'm happy. Now I don't want it to take up the whole box. I don't want it to be really, really big in the box, but I do want it to be, a decent size so that you can, in fact, read it. I think that looks pretty good. It's a little bit smaller than this one, but I honestly think that one is a little bigger than I wanted it to be. Now we need to use the slice option again because I'm going to have not cut out of this little oval. So what I'll do is I'll select the oval and the word not, and that is 2 layers. And then I can go down to the bottom and click slice. Once it's sliced, you can remove the 2 words, and now you'll see that this is cut out of the oval like it is over here. Now, before I move on to anything else, I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to grab all my pieces. I'm going to go to Align, and I'm going to center them horizontally just to make sure that everything looks nice, neat, and even before I move on to my last set of text. The last set of text I'm doing is the I'm just, and this one's really fun. This is where we're going to learn how to use an offset and how to slice that offset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a text box again, and I'm going to put I'm just, and that is my text. Then I go up to my fonts, and for this one, I use that Boldwell, so I'm just going to search for Boldwell. Again, I'll link all the fonts that I'm using down below so you can replicate this if you want to. Once I've selected the font and it's changed, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my sizing on this, and I'm also going to change the color on this just so that we can see it better against all the other parts. Because what I want you to see is, see how it's kind of cut out of the N and the T, the little I here, and I've got the J cut out, just a little bit of the knot. that's just kind of a cutesy look that I wanted to do. I thought it would be fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get this kind of where I want it. Now, like I said, this is not going to be the exact same because it is really hard to replicate like the exact same like lineup and exact same sizing. So I'm just kind of going to guesstimate about where I want this. I think that looks pretty good. And now I need to add an offset to the I'm just. So what I'm going to do is click offset. And for this, I don't want a really big one. Like that's way too big for this. So I'm going to size it down quite a bit. And I just wanted to cut just a little bit out of the letters and just a little bit out of the not sign here. So I think 1.11 is a little bit too big. So I'm going to go 0.09 and just see if that's a little more the size I want. And I think that's much more in the sizing I want to go for. So I'm going to click apply. And now what you have is this little offset here. Now this is still a little bit too close, so I'm going to scoot this down just a touch so that it's not touching the little offset into the O. You can adjust this however you want to. It's up to you. You can move the anti up a little bit if you want to. However you want to do it, it's up to you. Now I need to slice the offset out of antisocial and out of this not. So a quick way to do that so that I'm not having to slice it out twice is I can take the not and the antisocial, I can combine them and I can use the unite option, which I can undo if I ever want to. And then I can take the offset, which is the black piece, and slice it out of the unite because that counts as 2 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and slice this and you'll see what kind of happens here. So I'm going to delete this little tiny slice result. I'm going to delete this small slice result, and then I'm going to delete this bigger slice result. And now you'll see that our letters are kind of cut out of those spaces. And I'll go ahead and change the color of that so that it just blends and it looks more like we want it to. Because it's going to end up looking like this when we're done. Now comes a fun part where we get to do some slicing. And this is really easy to do, but we're going to use some shapes. Now for this, you can use kind of any shape you want, but I like to use either this little shape here, which is really great, and like the square. So I'll start with our square first, and I'm going to slice around the word antisocial. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this square, and let me change the color of it just to make it stand out a little bit against what we're doing, make it yellow. And I'm going to size it, and I want to size it so that it covers the entire antisocial word. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and pull it so that it's under the circle because I want to see where it lines up, and I want to give just a little bit of space to the bottom of the letters and a little bit of space to the top. But keep in mind, we're going to have some space here too. So you don't want to go too tall, but I do want to give it a little bit of area. Now I am going to be slicing this square out of this circle. And before I do anything else, just to be sure that I'm happy where everything is sitting, before I move, I just kind of look it over. Am I happy? Does it look good? I think it looks fine. So before you do that, just always double check your work. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the circle and the square and slice these apart by using the slice option. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete these small pieces of our circle and the yellow square. And are you starting to see kind of it coming together with these holes in the design? Now, I'm going to be using this arch shape, but if for some reason you don't have Cricut Design Space access, you can use a circle if you want to, or you can use, you can find this shape on Google. There's lots of ways to find this. Again, I'm going to change it yellow so that you can see what I'm doing. But this time I'm going to put it around the I'm not. And what I'm going to do here, and I only need it to cover the circle. It doesn't have to be like this perfect piece. It just has to be covering the circle. Now again, I'm going to pull the circle over that, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the words I'm not so that I can see them beyond this design. Because I do think I want to make this a little bit smaller. It just needs to cut just a bit away from the circle. Now, once I'm happy with how much that's covering, I think that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this shape. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to flip it, and I want to flip it vertically because I'm going to use it down here to cover up the word user-friendly. Now, again, I can pull this under the circle so I can get a look at where it goes, and then I can put the user-friendly on top just so I can see kind of how big it's going to cut out on each side because I do want it to be a little bit even. Then a quick little trick. So rather than slicing this twice, because that seems annoying, what you can do is take your little segmental arch and take both of those, combine them and weld them, and then they become one layer. And then you can slice them out of the circle all at the same time, and it just saves you a little bit of time. Then what you want to do is you're going to delete the slice result up here. You're going to delete this part of the slice result and this slice result. Now are you seeing how it came together? So fun and so easy. Now what I can do for this is I can attach this, and that way if I want to make any changes to it, I absolutely can in a future time. But that way everything's held together. So when I click make it, and I'll hide the original. So now when I click make, you'll see that it's going to bring up this design. It's all held in place. It was really easy to make. We can resize it. We can use it for whatever we want to. And it was really easy to do. Now, I know that sometimes working with Cricut Design Space can be a little bit confusing and can be a little intimidating, but I hope that this helped you learn a few skills like slice, working with text, centering, and all of those different types of things. By combining all of your different skills, shapes, fonts, all sorts of things, you can really create just about anything that you want to within Cricut Design Space. Now, let me just say that if you have plans to want to eventually sell your designs, do not design them within Cricut Design Space. And I'll link my Inkscape playlist down below. The reason you don't want to do it in Cricut Design Space is because their terms of service do not allow you to take your designs outside of Design Space. If you do that, you do run the risk of getting in trouble. There are ways to get them out, and you can do it, but they don't let you. So just keep that in mind on the legal side of things. It's a little bit of a hairy situation that you don't necessarily want to get yourself into. It's one of the reasons that I really don't tend to like to design in Cricut Design Space, especially if it's something that eventually I may want to sell in the future. Like something like this design I think is really cute and would be great on my Etsy shop, and I am probably going to recreate it in Inkscape so that I can sell it, but this is definitely not the way to do it if you want to sell. Now, if you have any questions, please let me know in those comments down below. I'm always happy to answer those for you. Be sure you're subscribed here. That way you don't miss out on any of the fun, crafty content we have coming. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, happy crafting.